So let's dive in. We're taking a deep dive today into all the stuff you sent us about juggling passions. Plus, there were some seriously interesting language things you pointed out.
Right.
It seems like what you're trying to figure out is how to go after all the awesome things you're interested in without feeling totally scattered, like you're being pulled in a million directions. So we're going to explore some ways to really zero in on your energy and make some serious progress.
Yeah, I mean, just going through your materials is clear you're super enthusiastic about trying new things. You have that, like, "Amazing, let's do this" energy.
Right.
That's honestly a fantastic asset.
Totally. Like that jump in drive is huge. But the main question we want to try and answer today, the one that's probably been on your mind, is how do you get good at more than one thing
Yeah.
without just ending up being, well, okay at everything?
Yeah, that's something a lot of people worry about, that whole idea that if you split your attention, you're gonna weaken your abilities. But it was interesting seeing your sources straight up confront that. They're really pushing back on that idea, suggesting that it's totally possible to excel in a bunch of different areas.
Okay, so let's break that down. Like if it is possible to be good at lots of different things, what's the secret sauce? What makes
Mm.
it happen? And from what we saw in your stuff, focus seems to be the most important thing.
Ah,
It's like the key ingredient for becoming really skilled at anything, whether it's just one thing you love or a whole bunch of them.
you're absolutely right. Focus is like the foundation. And one of the things I found really encouraging from your sources is that focus isn't like a fixed personality trait.
Yeah,
It's something you can actually develop and get better at over time.
right.
They even talk about how your focus can shift. Sometimes it's super sharp, and other times it's all over the place. And then it can go back to being super focused. I think that's something a lot of people can relate to.
It really is. Like
Yeah.
life just throws so many distractions at us, right? You got work, family, just all the everyday stuff. They all want a piece of our attention.
Mm.
And that's exactly why having a strong focus is so important. As your sources pointed out, even if you carve out time for your passions, without that real focus, you're probably not going to see the progress you're hoping for. And knowing that you want to learn things quickly and deeply, focus becomes like your superpower for learning efficiently.
Totally agree. And that actually leads to a really practical strategy mentioned in what you sent us.
Okay.
It's the idea of doing things one at a time.
Mm,
It's all about really immersing yourself in one specific area before adding another thing to your plate. So
yeah.
you're directing your focus and energy where it matters most instead of spreading yourself too thin across all these different new things all at once.
Yeah. That makes perfect sense, especially when you think about that feeling of being overwhelmed. If you try to learn like five new things at the same time, you're almost guaranteed to feel that way. But this one thing at a time approach can really help. It can ease that anxiety and make everything feel way more manageable.
Exactly. And going along with that idea of focusing on one thing at a time, your sources bring up this really interesting thing they call the confidence snowball.
Hmm.
It suggests that when you get good at one thing, it actually helps you believe in your ability to learn and stick with things in other areas too, even ones that seem completely different.
Oh, I like that analogy. It's like this positive feedback loop where you keep building on your successes. The example they give in your material is super convincing. It goes from learning guitar to kickboxing to learning Japanese and then eventually software engineering.
Hmm.
Like those are some seriously different skills. But the main thing is that underlying confidence, like your sources say, that show up attitude. You build that discipline in one area, it carries over to everything else.
And the really cool part is, it's not even about skills that directly translate.
Right.
It's more about building your overall skill developing skill, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
As one of your sources put it, you develop this belief that you can learn and adapt, and that belief gets stronger every time you succeed at something new. It's a powerful insight, realizing that mastering one thing makes it easier to tackle the next, even if they seem completely unrelated.
Okay, so let's say you're looking at all these different things you want to try. How do you pick where to start? Your sources have some really useful tips for that.
Mhm.
They suggest asking yourself, what's really on your mind right now?
Right.
What's that one thing you keep finding yourself drawn back to?
Another way to put it is, what's that one skill or area of knowledge that if you could just snap your fingers and be good at it,
Right.
what would give you the most satisfaction? That initial pull, that natural curiosity is usually a good sign of where to focus your energy first.
Now, for someone with a ton of interests, there's probably this worry about like how much can you actually handle? Your sources talk about this max capacity idea, and it's actually pretty encouraging. They acknowledge that everyone is different, but the general feeling is that we can learn and grow way more than we think we can.
Yeah, and one of your sources has this personal story about how they couldn't even imagine doing all the different things they're doing now back when they were younger.
Mm,
It's really relatable. It shows how our sense of our own potential changes as we gain experience and start making progress. It's a good reminder to not underestimate yourself.
It makes me think of this super powerful analogy that came up in your stuff,
Okay.
the ambient light to laser concept. Could you walk us through that?
Yeah, definitely. Think of your energy and focus like a source of light. Okay.
Mm,
If that light is spread out, like the ambient light in a room, it's not very strong in any one spot.
okay.
It's kinda like trying to do a million things at the same time, your energy gets diluted.
Yeah, you're kind of just dipping your toes in, getting a
Yeah.
little taste of everything, but you're not really making any real progress in any one area.
Exactly. Now imagine you take that same light and you focus it into a laser beam.
Okay.
The total amount of light is the same, but now it's super concentrated. It's way more powerful and effective.
Right.
And that's what it's like when you focus all your energy on one passion at a time. For someone like you who wants to learn things well and not get overwhelmed by information, that laser focus is essential.
It really makes you think about where you might be wasting energy, maybe without even realizing it.
Mm,
Like, how much time do you spend on things that aren't really moving you forward? And it's not about judging those things, it's more about being aware so you can consciously shift that energy towards something that's really important to you.
exactly. So you've figured out your main focus, you're channeling your laser beam and all that. The next question is, how do you know when you're ready to branch out and add something else into the mix?
Right.
Your sources have some good indicators for that.
Yeah, one of the main signs is when doing that main thing doesn't feel like pulling teeth anymore.
Mm.
That initial resistance you might have felt starts to fade away,
Yeah.
and it becomes more of a natural part of your routine.
Your materials also mention reaching a certain level of competency as another important sign.
Yeah.
While consistently showing up is probably the most important measure, getting to a point where you feel reasonably skilled in that initial area suggests you have a solid foundation to work with.
And this one was really eye opening for me. That feeling that something's off when you go a few days without doing that thing.
Right.
It's like your mind and body have come to expect it, they even crave it.
It's a sign that you've truly integrated that activity into your life. It's not just something you have to do, it's something you actually enjoy and miss when it's not there.
Right.
The examples they give, like missing kickboxing or not playing guitar for a few days, really illustrate that. If you try to add something new before you reach that stage, you might end up diluting your focus and feeling scattered again.
So the main strategy seems to be focusing on one thing at a time. But your sources also get that we're human. We crave variety. That's where the idea of dabbling in other interests comes in.
You can think of it as a way to satisfy that curiosity without going all in.
Hmm.
So, if you're really focused on learning, say, a new language, but you've got other things that spark your interest, it's okay to explore them a little bit without the pressure of becoming an expert.
Yeah.
It's a healthy way to keep things interesting without getting sidetracked from your main goal.
So it's like, okay, I'm laser focused on this language, but I'm also going to spend an hour reading about astrophysics just because it's cool.
Yeah,
You can satisfy that curiosity without having to dedicate the same level of focus as you do to the language.
exactly. Now, when you start trying to master any new passion, your sources bring up this thing called the valley. What's that all about?
The valley.
Yeah.
It's that point where the initial excitement wears off and the real work kicks in.
Mhm.
It happens especially in the beginning when you might not see progress as quickly and that initial joy can start to fade.
Mm.
It's that phase after the honeymoon phase
Mhm.
where you realize, okay, this is going to take consistent effort and dedication.
The examples in your material are great for illustrating this.
Okay.
With learning Japanese, it's that frustrating period where you're struggling with basic sentences and trying to understand everything.
Right.
In music, it's all those endless scales and exercises.
It can be really discouraging because you're not at the level you want to be yet.
Exactly.
But the key takeaway is that this valley is normal.
Yeah.
It happens with almost every new skill or hobby.
Mhm.
And the important thing is to just recognize it for what it is and push through it. Because on the other side of that valley is where things get really good.
Mhm.
Your sources talk about unlocking creativity at that point.
Right.
That's when things become genuinely fun and you reach that point where you're not going to give up.
That's when you move beyond the basics and start expressing yourself, trying new things, really connecting with your passion on a deeper level, like with languages. It's when you stop translating everything in your head and just start speaking naturally.
Hmm.
With music, it's when you go from playing other people's music to making your own. Getting through that valley is crucial if you want to find long term fulfillment and reach that point where you're truly engaged.
So while you're busy focusing on your main passion, it's also important to keep that long term perspective in mind.
Yeah.
You're putting in the work now, even when it's tough,
Yeah.
because you know that eventually you'll be able to do all these amazing things.
Right.
And that's way more rewarding than just knowing a little bit about a lot of stuff.
And here's another piece of advice that your sources bring up. It's completely okay to quit something if you're just not enjoying it,
Okay.
especially after you've given it a fair shot, like trying to push through that initial valley.
Hmm.
Don't feel like you failed if something just doesn't click for you.
That's such a good point. We often feel this pressure to keep going with something, even if it's not making us happy.
Right.
But knowing when to let go, that's a skill in itself.
Definitely. And as you're on this journey of mastering different passions, your sources emphasize the importance of being kind to yourself.
Hmm.
It takes time and effort to implement these strategies. There will be days when you feel stuck, or you'll be tempted to jump back to juggling too many things at once. Being patient with yourself is key.
Absolutely. Before we wrap up, your sources leave us with a really interesting concept, the 99 and 1% rule.
Okay.
Can you explain what that's all about?
This rule basically highlights where most of your progress is going to come from.
Right.
The idea is that about 99% of your success comes from your own hard work and practice.
Mm.
Only about 1% comes from external resources like videos, courses, or even conversations like this.
Right.
It's a reminder that you're the one driving your own mastery.
Okay, so let's do a quick recap of everything we talked about today. Prioritize focusing on one thing at a time to build momentum and confidence. Know that you're probably going to hit that valley at some point, but push through it. And learn to recognize when you're truly ready to add something new by paying attention to how consistently you're showing up and how engaged you feel.
And don't forget that your own effort and practice are what really matter in the end.
So, for you, our listener, thinking about that ambient light to laser analogy, where could you focus your energy today to start making progress on one of your passions? What's one small step you can take right now with that laser focus to jump in and get started? That's your challenge for today. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.